if I asked you to read 20 different one-liners, you'd only be able to remember, a couple. But if I told you to read one line 20 times, you'd be able to retain it. Right. So your body thrives off repetition. It doesn't just get better because you've done some variety. It doesn't need change. Does it need, stimulus? Absolutely. But only after a certain period of time. Or again, like if you see a workout that's working really well that you're continuously putting down more and more power with, or you're even staying the same with an increased load, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Here we go.
Hey. Happy Thursday. Welcome aboard. Hey,
welcome aboard.
Yeah, man, it's the Crushing Iron Podcast. It is episode 349, and today is 2/20/2020.
Whoa, say that again? That confused me for a minute.
I know, right? Today is 2/20/2020. Today is February 20th, 2020. We appreciate you tuning in. If it's your first time, hey, welcome aboard. We cover it all. We cover triathlon. We cover life. I am Coach Robbie. That's Coach Mike. We are both athletes and coaches. I've been doing this for about 10 or 15 years, and Mike for 6 or 7. And we have been best friends for about the same length, about past 7 years. And we started this podcast 3 years ago, well, a little over 3 years ago, I guess, to just connect, to have conversations. I was living in Kansas City at the time. Mike was living in Nashville. Mike is still in Nashville for now. I'm currently in Chattanooga, and it's just an open forum. We tend to just dive into what we're going through personally, what maybe our athletes are going through as they're training, and then obviously as triathlon and life often do, they collide. And there's a lot of things that can be learned from that, or both our personal experiences and also our athletes' experiences. We even have a Facebook group that's full of a lot of really awesome individuals that have a lot of insight, and that's actually probably what's going to drive today's podcast. But we cover it all. We've had race directors on, we've had professional triathletes, we've had a couple other people on, but for the most part, we just like to have an open conversation and dialogue with no sponsors, no ads, no pushing a certain thing on you, but just doing our best to share our experiences. And if you can take even just a couple nuggets away from our podcast today, we will have done our job. And again, we know there are a lot of podcasts out there that you can choose from, hundreds and hundreds, I'm sure. So we appreciate you giving us the time today, and we'll try to do our best to make it worth your while.
Yeah, we will. Can we go back to this 2/20 thing?
Yeah, we can. Am I wrong?
No, you're right. Is that like a golden birthday, or is that what?
Is that a who?
What do they call that? Golden birthday?
I don't really know. That might be something for the older crowd. I don't know. Anything.
Well, if it is, it's one of our athletes, Colin Bonds. Happy birthday on 2/22/22.
It's probably turning.
Dude, yeah, man. So I
Oh, God.
Sorry. I know. I gotta chill out, man.
It's all right.
Friday. Yeah, so I told you last time I was getting on this this bike block.
All right, yep.
Yeah, I started Friday, I think it was, and had like a really good streak going. Did a couple doubles, and Sunday just felt outstanding.
Ooh.
Like more energy than I had in a long time. I went damn near vegan for 3 days.
On purpose, or just like?
Just kind of cleansing. Yeah, on purpose. Yeah, I was just like, I need some more vegetables. So I just started eating vegetables, and I was on fire. And then shortly after the podcast Monday morning, I started getting sick. So I've been battling like a gunker.
You've been battling the crud?
Yeah. Yesterday I was down, dude.
Down for the count, dude.
I was.
Sorry to hear that, man. It's telling you, we are in like prime. I'm scared to even say this. Because I'm not going to say it. I am going to say, though, that you would think that like a person like yourself who doesn't have to go into an office, who isn't really surrounded by a lot of people all the time, who's kind of a homebody, you would be pretty like self-contained in terms of getting, like fending off like other people's sickness and contracting stuff. Do you think it was just, lack of sleep or different diet or too much stress, like, from working out or life's, life stresses? What do you think kind of got you down? because we've done it. Well, I'm not gonna say it because we'll just jinx us, but we're always kind of like we're kind of really hyper vigilant because Hayden goes to daycare, and as anybody with a child in the school knows, they bring back like the full array of germs and every other kid's diseases and snotty noses and stuff. So what do you think? What do you think got you down? But you sound like you're almost back, or at least 80%.
Yeah, I mean, I go hard when that happens. I go into this like garlic binge and
Garlic binge.
well, I like the flu bomb kind of thing, like
Oh yeah.
hot drinks with garlic and ginger and not turmeric. What's the pepper? Cayenne pepper, lemon juice. I just start going hard. So, I mean, I felt pretty bad yesterday, but it's that kind of the cleanup phase when you sound worse than you do. But
oh yeah, I know about that.
yeah, man. I don't know.
Yeah,
Someone tried to tell me it was allergies.
It could be. We've had
there's
been some of that here. You don't sound that bad. I mean, if it makes you feel any better, I've been pretty like awesomely healthy the past few months, and at least twice I've had emails from athletes that are like, "Hey man, you kind of sounded like you weren't feeling very well on the podcast." I'm like, thanks.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm like, thanks, appreciate it. Like,
That's all
like somebody randomly walks up, you're like hanging out, you're like, "Hey," you're like, are you sick? You look kind of sick. And you're like,
God, don't ever say that.
Yeah, don't ever say that. Like, no, I feel great. But thanks, appreciate it. But yeah, you sound pretty good. You sound a little bit raspy, but you kind of give off a good like most interesting man kind of vibe. So it kind of goes. I think it works for you, man.
I'll take it. Yeah. So I was just gonna say maybe it was because the weather's been just wacko, man.
Oh, I know, dude. 60s, 30s, rain, sunshine. It's been all over the place, man.
Yeah, and I have been doing a lot of yard work, so maybe there is some kind of allergy system goof going, fighting. But I don't believe in allergies, really. I just don't.
Okay.
I think it's like a...
Hang with us, guys. Hang with us. We're almost to the cast. Hang with us.
This stuff impacts us, though, I think it's just like I try to keep an eye on my immune system, and I think I think it's just an overactive immune system a lot of times, the allergy thing. So that's just a theory. That's not my theory.
That's that is your theory. We could go into your sunscreen theory too.
Yeah.
I think this will probably go.
Anytime.
Yeah. Well, anyway, back to the podcast. Again, we appreciate you tuning in and hanging with us. If you were offended by the allergy comment, then hey, it's that's kind of how things roll here. I had a couple topics for today, but it's been a while since we did a kind of a listener Q&A cast. And so a couple minutes ago, I popped into our closed group, which is on Facebook. It's Crushing Iron Group, if you want to hop in that, and posted a call out and just basically said, hey, we're going to start recording our cast today. If you would like to throw down a question that you'd like for us to address today or attempt to address, then we will do our best to go through those. So this will be a listener-driven podcast, obviously, and I said this in my post, we obviously cannot promise to get through them all. Especially if I go off on a tangent that includes 43 analogies and maybe a sponge. But we'll do our best. Maybe it'll be topics for a different day. But hey, we do this for our listeners. We do this for the community. We have a really awesome group of people that make up our community, and they're what makes what we do worthwhile. So we will get rocking and rolling on that. And again, I can't promise we won't dive deep because you and I just kind of do what we want and go with the flow. But we'll try to at least make an attempt. And again, no promises. We'll at least make an attempt to get through 4. And I will make these more of a shorter version, but you rein me in as you usually do if I get, way off topic, as if we have a topic. Number 1 from Joshua Venus. Yeah, man. Can you talk about Journey? He goes, yeah, man. Can you talk about bike workout periodization and what structures build overall strength that increase the ability to translate into faster bike splits? That was like 7 questions.
I'll just put my feet up, dude, and you just.
I know. You had.
Good thing I got the allergies going.
Sit back, relax, enjoy your fake news allergies, and let me hop in this one real quick. Good question. Periodization is a term that I think a lot of triathletes are familiar with. I'm not sure that everyone fully understands the purpose behind it or what it actually means. But for a lot of, and we've talked this on a couple of podcasts before, about periodizing your training and intensities, and that would look a lot of ways like you have your base, your build, your race specific, and then obviously the focus or the intensities or the intervals. They're all different in between. There's different focuses, whether it's through the base, through the race specific phase. One thing that I think this should be really important for athletes to understand, especially if they're self-coached, because you have to be your own watchful eye. You don't have a coach to look over it for you, is that don't blindly follow a periodized plan just because. There are a lot of athletes who respond really, really well to specific stimulus that other athletes don't. And there's also this kind of form of training where people just kind of go from one thing to another. Even if something is working really, really, really well, people just move on to the next. Well, the thing about training is that if you find, like in a lot of the athletes that I work with have, well, obviously they've noticed this or they have noticed or will, is that if I see something that's working, especially with bike training, if I see an interval that's or a session that's working, that they're responding well to, that they're getting faster, or they're getting, we're seeing the adaptations that we want to see, then why not? Why change it? I think we triathletes, again, and I've had this discussion with so many athletes before when it comes to, like an intake call or yeah, well, the old coach I had, there wasn't just a lot of variety. And variety, variety's for the weak, but I don't do a lot of variety. I mean, some of my stuff, you might see weeks and weeks and weeks that are kind of the same. And that's more attention to detail than it is laziness. And I think a lot of triathletes mistake non-variety or what I would consider you just want to be entertained as coaches being lazy. Well, the truth is that, choosing a lot of sessions that are just different all the time are hard to replicate. And you have to be able to do your best to be able to replicate it. It'd be like asking a chef to produce 20 different dishes and you only get one shot. Well, they're only going to be, okay or good at all 20 of them. But if they do one over and over and over again 4 or 5 times in a row, the fifth one's probably going to be what? It's probably going to be the best. They're going to be able to do it faster. They're going to put more detail into it. It's going to taste better. That's the same for bike workouts. You like to give repeat sessions because you're able to attack them differently and more specifically and know what to do because guess what? You've been there before. So, whether you're being coached, you have a training plan, you see repetitive workouts, that's a sign of confidence, not a sign of laziness. I know that athletes like to be entertained with different sessions, but the body responds really, really well to repeated doses. So going back to periodization, and what structures build overall strength, we always have been and always will be a huge fan of big gear work. We talked about that in multiple podcasts. Why we're a fan of that? Because it does build strength. It does increase those communication pathways that help your body or your legs talk to each other when it comes time to put down bigger focuses. Now, the more the wide or relative part of this question is that's going to increase the ability to translate into a faster bike split. That's just called hard work. I mean, there is no secret one size fits all. There is good strategies to implement to each individual athlete. But when you look at periodization, you become obsessed with it. Then sometimes like I said before, you'll pick one thing and then just move on because, I'm now supposed to go to the build phase and that's supposed to be this. But if you see something working or you see something that you need to do over again, then do it over again. There's nothing wrong with that. Repetition and being consistent is, I think, one of the things that triathletes, again, they think variety is something that or spontaneity or entertainment that means better, but it's not. A lot of things need to be the same so you can execute it to the best of your ability because that's where you're really going to see the benefits from. In terms of, again, increase the ability to translate into faster bike splits. A lot of that's also about pacing. It's about sustained efforts. It's about doing the work that you need to do. I know that's a very broad answer, but there's not a one size fits all to build overall strength that increase the ability to translate into faster bike splits. A lot of that is just adherence to the training, its consistency, and its execution on race day. And faster bike splits aren't necessarily my favorite topic because I think they're kind of overrated. Because a fast bike split is no such thing if you have a poor run. This means you're poorly paced or poorly trained.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, man. I think this variety thing if you guys want variety, hit me up. I'll give you some crazy stuff. But no, seriously, as I started to get back into cycling, I was thinking about that in a big way. You know, like, all right, should I start? And I just started getting on the bike. I was doing the same thing. I did it like 6 or 7 rides in a row, but just with this idea of kind of mastering it. You know, the different. It was sort of for me, it was just sort of a mixed combo. A little bit of high cadence, a lot of recovery inside the ride, and some big gear stuff in there, but not overly big. It was more of, like you said, I like that. The adaptation part of things is so huge to me. It's just like kind of getting a good grip on where you're at, and then pushing that needle a little bit. And I think about that a lot, and I'm glad you kind of said it like you did. I think that probably makes sense to more people than the way I would try and explain it. So there you go, Joshua.
Yeah, I mean, and listen, your body and your mind, they're all, you have both, but they work very much the same. Like if I asked you to read one line, 20 different one-liners, you'd only be able to remember, a couple. But if I told you to read one line 20 times, you'd be able to retain it. Right, so your body thrives off repetition. It doesn't just get better because you've done some variety. It doesn't need change. Does it need stimulus? Absolutely, but only after a certain period of time. Or again, like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like if you see a workout that's working really well, that you're continuously putting down more and more power with, or you're even staying the same with an increased load, then leave it. Stop just changing just for the sake of changing, because your body won't be able to verbalize this to you, but it'll be like, dude, wait, what are you doing here? We were like on a roll. We were doing awesome. And now you're just going to throw in some random thing you downloaded off Trainer Road just because you've lost focus. Bring it back, man. So it can't tell you that, but triathletes are famous for just changing things up just to change things.
I agree, man. And one thing I think we always forget is that the goal of all this stuff, to me anyway, is to be doing it kind of without thinking about it. Kind of, you know what I mean? So it's like, you want it to be a habit. You want it to be a natural inclination of your body to go through this. And what are we trying to do? Sustain a pace that we can handle to get off the bike for a long time, right? We want that to sort of be built into our DNA. And I don't, it's not like we're playing basketball where you have to practice all these quick little movements and different little weird things that could happen during a game. We're just sustaining, a bike ride, basically.
It's again, and just like running, it's not how fast you go, it's who slows down the least. And we see this all the time at every race. Somebody passes you the first 10 or 15 miles that are just gung-ho and they're blazing through, and then I don't know, around the last 10 miles of the event, oh, look at there's Timmy Try is sitting up in his $80,000 Tri bike with his deep dish wheels and alien helmet, sitting up shaking his arms out because he is toast. Yeah. So again, there are so many things taken into account, but we've covered it on some cycling podcasts. How to Not Suck at Cycling. Go back, check that one out. It's a great one. Number 2, Clay Seal. For those not racing but want to keep in some reasonable shape or fitness to where they could build back toward racing in the future, what are some tips to navigate that time? This is an easy one, and I think we've done a pretty decent job the last few podcasts of kind of addressing it in a roundabout way. Is, dude, have fun. Look for things that are fun experiences. It should be a relief for a lot of athletes to maybe not have a race, because you can just go out and do whatever. You can go out and run one day and ride one day and swim day, whatever fits your schedule literally the best every day you wake up. Do that. And just remember that anytime you're running or cycling or swimming or doing anything, going for a hike or hopping on your gravel bike or doing whatever, at any point during that event, any point during that training session or exercise or experience, you can say to yourself, I'm really lucky I can do this because most people can't. Either they can't, they physically can't because they're not capable, and they want to, and you can, so you are, or they just won't. They'd rather sit on their couch. They'd rather eat a bag of Doritos and watch, 80 series on Netflix. They have no motivation. They have no energy. You can, so you are. That alone should give you enough power and personal energy each day to be thankful and grateful for the opportunities that we have. I think people sometimes get this this vision or this opinion of what they're doing or not doing, that if they don't have an race or an agenda, that they shouldn't be doing anything. But when we got into this, or at least for you and I know both, and a lot of people, it's like to feel better about ourselves and to get fit. And so you can do that in any kind of ways. Experiment with things that you told yourself you couldn't do. Go play pickup basketball at the Y because you quit playing team sports or intramural activities, or things on the weekends with your buddies because you were too afraid to get injured or turn your ankle because you have a race coming up. Go do that. Anything that gets your heart rate up, that is fun, that you can do for a period of time, that's going to relieve stress and not add stress, is awesome. And if you can keep that, it's not just about treading water physically and keeping some of the fitness that you've built up from your previous races. So it's not just treading water with that. It's just about being in shape and having fun and, experiencing new and exciting things that you may find lead you down another path. So I think those times are fun for us. I think we tend to look at them as things that are scary because we like to have a goal, we like to have a focus, but that can be some of the most enjoyable times in your racing. And you might come back from that, your triathlon sabbatical or whatever you want to call it, more fit, more invigorated, and with an even better perspective.
Yeah. Man.
Thank you.
I'm changing it up. Hey,
right.
I'm in that phase a little bit, so I get it, and I totally agree with you. I think it is an opportunity to come back in better shape, kind of in a different, well-rounded sort of way. One of the things I like to do is just like when I'm walking, I'll just do push-ups, a set of push-ups, like walk away for a couple minutes, do another set or whatever, and do things like that, little things that aren't really, quote-unquote, sculpted into your training peaks or whatever, but just things that kind of keep you in shape. I'll tell you what, nothing makes me feel better than push-ups, to be honest. It's one of those things. I don't know what it does to my spinal cord or whatever, but it's like a good thing. But there's so many things that we can do to sort of what I call round out the triathlete body, that I think it's a good time for that,
Mm-hmm.
And, whether it's setting up that trainer and getting on it for 30 minutes here and there when you have a break, those are all little things, and I think you're right. Just have fun with it because it's an opportunity. I don't even have a race yet, and it's kind of weighing on me because I think I want to do one, but I haven't felt like signing up, so I'm just going to keep moving.
And for a lot of athletes, that time away is, you can't hear it, but for a lot of us, depending on how hard you worked or how injury-ridden you were while you were training, your body could be just thanking you. And then you will reap the benefits of a rebuilt, fresh, healthy body when you do come back.
I like that.
Yep. Summer Scandridge, if we must eat solid food on the bike during an Ironman, what are the best options? Thank you, Archiana, for commenting that no to the queso. But listen, nutrition and what you can or want to take in on a 70.3 Ironman distance race is so varied that it's based, and this is like one of those really general answers you're going to get that you're probably going to hate, but I'd be irresponsible if I said there was an exact thing that you should do because, one, we're all different. We all have different caloric needs. We all have different sweat rates, and we all have different tolerances. So what you can or would like to take in might be totally opposite of what you should be taking in. Like, a lot of people might say, Uncrustables are good. That also depends on the kind of pace you're doing and what kind of, because one of the things that we tend to forget when we look at, well, what are you guys taking for, nutrition? It's like, I don't know what my stomach can handle. Some athletes that we work with, they have very, very sensitive stomachs. And I know some athletes who have iron stomachs who could eat nails if they wanted to, if they were laced with goo, and they'd be totally fine. It's also, and what you can take in on the bike is also dependent on what kind of intensity you're going. If you're an athlete who is maybe a little bit faster or a little more capable of biking at a higher intensity, 75%, maybe even 80%, then you're going to be going at a higher rate, which means you're going to be a higher percentage, higher RPE, which for most athletes means they can take in less solid foods because the energy that your body would need to digest those properly is being taken up by what you're doing in cycling. Now, if you're going a little bit easier, maybe 50, 60%, you're going very easy, then you can obviously take in more. A lot of things you might hear are like, fig bars are great. Salted, like boiled potatoes are awesome. I have a lot of friends that use Uncrustables. You can same thing with sweet potatoes. Any of those are like really, really easily digestible. But again, this is so much about practice. And that's why there is at no point, at 0 points, at no point is it too early to start practicing or training your gut for the bike, because most athletes not only fail on the run because of either improper run training or improper bike training or just flat out bad bike pacing, they also fail on the run because they were not able to fully fuel themselves for the bike. You're not just fueling on the bike, you're fueling for the run, because you can take in so many more calories while you're biking than you can while you're running. I don't know if you tried it before, but on the bike, I could like whip out a couple, power bars, a couple fig bars, cruising along, still pedaling at a pretty good clip, still keeping it zone 2 and take in, 300, 350, 400 calories an hour. When I'm running or if I'm running hard, dude, I can barely get like 100 to 150 in. And so you can't be depleted when you start throwing, because if you want to catch up, you're going to have to walk, because your level of exertion, your energy is going to be so high. Good luck taking, like, have you ever seen somebody like run, like eating an Uncrustable or boiled potato when they're running like zone 3 or zone 4? No, it ain't going to happen. Plus we've all run through the transitions and we've grabbed 4 cups of water and 8 cups of Gatorade. You know what we've gotten out of it? Like a 2 or 3 ounces max, because we splashed it all down our chest, we splashed it on our body, we throw Gatorade in our face because we forgot it's not water, and the next thing you know, we're leaving an aid station stop, and we've gotten in like 0 nutrition. So it's all varied, and again, that's why you can't start practicing that enough, especially this time of year. If you have a race that's far off, it's super easy to practice on your longer rides that are indoors, even if it's like an hour and a half or 2 hours, because you have everything at your disposal right there. You don't have to worry about carrying a bunch of fig bars or goos or Cliff Blocks or honey stinger waffles or boiled salted potatoes. You can just kind of have in your little lunch tray, hey, I think I'm going to try this right now and see how things work. And if things don't go well and you have GI issues, well, then, pause your trainer, get off, go to the restroom, come back. That's what you want to do. You don't want to start training with this when it starts to be 80 degrees outside and you're starting to experiment with new, nutrition, liquids and solids or goos, whatever it is. And then you get to be like mile 40 and now, and you got to come back the other 40 miles. You're 40 miles away from your car. There's no restroom in sight. And now you're going to have to leave a really, really uncomfortable and awkward Training Peaks comment to your coach about why you couldn't finish the ride or why there's a delay and why you need a new pair of tri-shorts. And I'm speaking from personal experience because I've gone through that with a run, but I've also had plenty of those in my Training Peaks.
Now, do you suggest purposely throwing Gatorade in your face to get used to the uncomfortableness if that happens in the race? Man, that can be worse.
Oh my gosh, man! I'm not
done that.
On that, no.
Okay, I didn't think so.
No, I used to. Back in the day when I used to drink, we used to squirt lemon in our eye before we took shots of tequila, so it would take the pinch away.
What?
Yeah.
In your eye?
In your eye.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, I will see. As you can see, times have changed. Next one, Josh Weiss. Yeah, we won't go down that rabbit hole. Josh Weiss,
someday.
It will be someday. Can the how to not suck at running method work for an 11-year-old girl who wants to run a half marathon? I am not going to comment on that.
I was waiting for that. Actually.
Sorry, dude. That is, working with youth and understanding their physiology and where they are in their age and where they are in puberty. Like, these are all things that you have to take into, like, you can't just do what adults do. That's not how things work. So you would have to be something very specific. It also depends on how long you want them to stay out there, what other kind of stressors they're having in life. So no, that is a more of a personalized discussion. I would pass on commenting on that. It'd just be irresponsible if I did. Stephanie Linkus, and sorry if I butchered your last name, my apologies. I know y'all have discussed this before, but would be great to get a good explanation of training off time versus mileage. I don't need the explanation for myself, time all the way, but I have a hard time conveying the idea to others that think mileage is the most important. We've talked about this before. I will try to break it down in the easiest possible way. Is that, are they the same? No. Are they pretty close? Yes. But your body only knows time. Your body only knows time. It doesn't know that you ran 7 miles. It knows how long you ran and the perceived effort that it would, that you did for that duration. It is much, much easier, especially for triathletes. Sometimes not runners, but mostly triathletes, to understand the weekly volume of stress you need, or that athlete needs to adapt, or that athlete can handle, and then adjust accordingly. Now, for myself, I know about, for every athlete I work with, when I give them a time, I know around about what's going to happen that day. If I give Mike a 15-minute run, I know that depending on the day, depending on the stress, that's probably going to yield, if it's a 15-minute run, anywhere between 5 to 5.8 miles, depending on how he's feeling. Therein lies the biggest and I think most important part. When you give out straight mileage goals to athletes, what you're not taking into account is wind, terrain, feel, exertion, overall stress, because you're just going to do the mileage. If I told Mike to go do a 60-minute run and it was all on very hilly terrain, well, he might only do 4.5 miles if he's staying within his zone. But if I told Mike to go run 6 miles and it was super hilly and stay zone 2, he would overexert. And instead of running for, an hour, he might run for an hour and 15. You might not think those 15 minutes are a huge deal, but if you look back at the percentages from going from an hour to hour and 15 minutes, he's now increased his volume in just that run by 20%. That's why, in my opinion, and I don't even know that many other coaches personally that prescribe mileage over time, that most of them do time, is because you can control and safeguard athletes from themselves and control the stress better with time versus mileage. Because the same thing could be said for if I said, go out and ride 5 hours, and the athlete went and rode 5 hours and it was super hilly terrain and they went out and, rode 80, and that's still a great workout. They got 5 hours of really, really hard work in. Or I could say go ride 100 and they choose a super easy path and they were still able to do 5. Like, it's all about stress. It's all about what the terrain is, about the wind. It's about being able to listen to your body. Right? It's not about being obsessed with the mileage. I went out for a run yesterday that was like the worst run I've had. I don't even know how long. And I was running from my house to the Y, and I cut it about 15 minutes short because I just felt terrible. And I was like, I live to fight another day. Today's not my day. I'll just kind of move on. If I had been obsessed with just making the mileage, I was going slow, even slower than I kind of thought I might have been that day. I was probably looking at another 25 minutes of running, which would have been about a 30% increase of what I did. So it's about controlling stress. Your time only knows the duration and the time that you've been out there. It doesn't know how far you've traveled.
Yeah, that's good, dude. I also think there's a subtle benefit of learning patience in there, too. For me, there is. It's like, because you're right, I'm the perfect guy that if you said go run 5 miles, I would try to get that done as quick as I could. Normally.
Yeah, most people do.
Just 5 miles, the faster I get done, the better.
Exactly. Just get it over with.
Yeah. That's like, and to me, that's the epitome of completely ignoring the process.
I agree. Yeah, man.
Yeah, man.
Hayden Gerhardt. Awesome. How do you coach an athlete who misses 3 to 5 consecutive days of a high volume block due to illness? Obviously, there are a lot of individual variability here, but missing nearly 10 hours of training is mentally challenging. Not to mention your body hasn't moved in days. Just wondering how you would suggest reintroducing training within a high volume block. Question. Okay, you got to answer 2 questions. Let me stop here. One, Hayden, it depends. And you don't just continue on. You just have to rework things. The thing is what you have to look back on is why they missed and why they got sick. Is it because, and oftentimes coaches have to take responsibility for this, in that we have to do a better job as coaches of knowing because we're all more susceptible of getting sick when we travel, when stress is high, when sleep is low, when training is high, when our kids are at home. Coaches need to know, or should know, or be able to adjust for that and understand that they need to lessen the stress, because remember, like we all get sick when we get stressed. And so coaches need to look back and think, all right, why did we get sick? And was training too much? Maybe we did a poor job of assigning a certain amount of training, so you were overtrained. And if we had assigned less training, your body would have had the energy to be like, oh, I've got plenty of energy to fight up this, cold or whatever. See ya. But instead, you were overtrained and overworked, so your body was like, I got nothing, so now I'm sick. But I always say that you should always wait 24 hours to work out again, even after you feel 100%. One more day is not going to hurt you. But what so many athletes do is they come back when they're like 80, 85, 90% and try to play quote unquote catch up. But again, like these, when you miss high volume, like blocks like that, or the 3 to 5 days, and you miss them from sickness or from injury or from any other reason, that's why being on a training plan is so hard, because you don't even know where to go from there. You just kind of guess. And most athletes make the biggest mistake, which is they just keep going and do the next week, because that's the track they're supposed to be on. It is a huge variety, and it depends on how they're bouncing back, and it depends on if they're fully recovered. But you can't just make work up. You have to rework the work. And that takes just paying attention and figuring out, and in my opinion, just playing it safe, and then kind of getting things back, and then kind of reworking the plan. Christopher Sisk, I feel like Mike is not being himself lately. Can we just work in a few yeah-mans? Mike has to continue to be the Mike we have grown to love. Don't change, Mike. Be yourself.
All right. I'll continue.
Yeah.
You're right. I think you're right, Christopher. I just I need to regroup, and just like you just said, right? I can't just make everything up. I just need to regroup and be myself.
Agreed. Yeah, man.
Yeah, man.
Matthew Gainey, do you have a bunch of analogies in the can, or do you come up with them real time during the pod? I just come up with them, and that's why half of them are terrible. Also, what will it take to get Mike to resume his signature dramatic pause, yeah man riff? We need a solid yeah man in the pod today to resume consistency.
Wow. The people have spoken.
They have, man. I thought I've tossed you a softball twice to come back with a yeah, man, and you've gone off somewhere else, dude. Don't change. Be the Mike we love.
Yeah, you gotta. You can't always give people what they want. You
gotta make them earn it. Yeah. So keep
not make them earn it.
The next 15
I just don't want to overdo it now. I feel like.
Tava,
I'll get back in.
Yeah. Tava Foster, what's the fastest TT bike in the world? The one that's ridden by the fastest cyclist in the world. That's the fastest one. Sam Browning, what are the 13 best ways to lower your underwater snorkel with paddles? 100-yard split in the pool. I'm going to pass on that one. Love you though, Sam from Chicago. Let me see. Who else? Tom, you've touched on it a little in the last podcast about the minimal differences needed between short course and long course base training, but could you further talk about any differences in training philosophy between those doing short course versus long course tries, maybe specifically in similarities to difference in workout types? Whew. I thought I was bad at run-on sentences. Tom, generally speaking, it's about the amount of volume. But even like short course, you can consider like sprint and Olympic distance. One of the things that people often get confused on, or just kind of have a different view or belief on, is that if you look at ITU athletes that are performing at like obviously this is an elite level, and we're talking like Olympians or people who compete on the ITU circuit with sprint or Olympic distance races, they're still training like 18 to 20 hours a week, right? And the reason they're doing that is because Zone 1, Zone 2 volume is still incredibly beneficial. And yes, do you need that really, really wide range of base for sprint and Olympic distance racing? You do. Why? because it's still about durability and creating a really solid chassis so that you can, so the engine you're trying to run on a 70.3 or a full is like half the size of the engine that they're trying to put out. It's like comparing NASCAR engines to drag racing, right? So drag racers are the ones that have to do sprint and Olympic distances. So you need something that's going to really, really be able to hold somebody who's going to be throwing down really, really, really hard paces for short periods of time. Because sometimes the stress really isn't even that different. If you the time is the biggest differentiator, but for a person doing an Olympic distance, you're going like as hard as you can from the gun. And so while you may still work the same zone 1 and zone 2 durations or volume, however you want to distribute it, you're more than likely focusing on more zone 4, more zone 5 work, which is like that threshold and anaerobic zone. You might be doing a little more speed than you normally would. But again, it's all very specific, but that's generally the differences between athletes who are focusing on something short, because most of us can carry with us our speed through a 5K or a 10K. And especially coming off a shorter swim and a shorter bike. It's when you start to break down after having biked 56 miles or 112 that it's not that speed is irrelevant. It's that speed only matters if you have the durability too. It's just about shifting percentages. So you might see athletes do more like 70% of that work in 30, but again, of high intensity. But again, they're all still working that zone 1, zone 2. It's something that a lot of what a quote unquote short course athletes might say, I don't need to do zone 1, zone 2 because I'm going fast, baby. Well, you're doing the opposite of what athletes who are still doing that and doing it twice as fast are doing.
I want to add one. Quick
Yeah, go ahead.
Just based on experience of especially Olis, I would say swim your ass off, because if you're just kind of going from a sprint to an Oli and like, well, it just doubles up. No, that's swim triples. And that's where I've usually completely bombed. I get out of the water like in last and then end up in the top 4 or 5 or whatever. And so I have great solid rides and runs, but I'm just completely gassed by that 1,500 meter swim. And to me, that's just a huge part of the Olympic distance that people kind of, maybe, I don't want to say ignore, at least I have, or at least I haven't tried to ignore it, but it could be 4 times as long as what you're used to. And it's almost a half Ironman swim.
Mm-hmm.
So, that kind of gets overlooked, I think. And
100% gets overlooked.
To me, that's, if you work a lot on your swim for short stuff like that, shorter stuff, to me, that's where your speed, get used to going fast kind of thing and get your heart pumping, that's where you can probably get a lot of side benefit that you're not really paying attention to. Mm-hmm. Rather than trying to run sprints and win sprints and all that kind of stuff.
Totally. Yeah, man. Yeah. Marlene says, there's a couple strength training ones coming in here. So I'll try and address them all together.
This adjustment.
Marlene says, do we really have to do strength training? Well, you don't have to do anything. You just do whatever you want. Should you? I think it depends. And a lot of that has to do with your goals and also your time. A lot of triathletes are really, really pressed on time. They are squeaking out the maximum amount of time they have in a week. And in my opinion, that should be allocated first and foremost for swim, bike, run, because that's the exact demands of the day. If they have a very flexible schedule and they can add some in, then again, I encourage it to be a lot of hopefully body weight stuff or something they can easily do at home because you're saving time. Do I think most triathletes have enough time to work hard and get the volume in they needed to improve for the demands of the specific distance that they have, to drive 10 or 15 minutes to the gym, get in a 15, 20-minute workout, and drive home and be showered? That's about an hour. No, I think you should do something else. I think you should probably choose to run for 60 minutes. Like again, it's about the, Jay Young asked, strength training, your philosophy on how you program it to your athlete's training. And then Sherry, I think, seconded that. And then Vanette asked something about overcoming a shoulder injury. Should strength training be added? Again, I think one of the biggest things athletes forget is that you're already time crunched, most of you. And if you have the time, because strength training for me isn't at the top. I know that'll probably will upset people and they think, oh, you got to strength train. Well, I've never strength trained a day in my life when I raced, and I did okay. And I feel like if I had more time, I would definitely add it in because I do see some benefit in it. But would I rather have 4 more hours in the month of running? Yeah, I would. Than if I'm then spending an hour a week to train. I feel like 4 hours of running is going to benefit me more for the demands of sport than driving 20 minutes to the gym and taking 20 minutes out of the day to do this. It's about time, but it's also about development. Where are you in your development? If you've had an injury history, if you haven't had injury history, and then also, are you very new to it? Most triathletes have zero experience in strength training. And if you put in a simple body weight, which I do, I've got body weight exercise. I do. Some athletes are on strength training. A lot of them are on injury prevention. Some are on body weight sessions. They'll do one 5-minute body weight session and crumble to their knees. So you also have to think about the amount of stress. So if I'm adding strength training is still stress, your body only knows stress. So now you're going to add in swim stress, bike stress, run stress, life stress, strength stress. And yes, do they all have a purpose? And I think strength training has a huge benefit to just regular day-to-day life stuff in terms of strength and durability and being able to perform better in certain areas. But you, as a coach, it's your job to allocate that stress. And it's a huge responsibility. How much and where do you need it? And then also, if you're a person who's been struggling in the past, or you've been sick a lot, or you're already constrained time-wise, and if you're already at peak stress, whether it's 10 hours, 12 hours, 13 hours, 14 hours, 20, whatever it is, if you're already at peak stress for where you are and how you've adapted with your fitness, then I'm not going to just throw in strength training just because you've already shown that your body can't handle anymore. But if it could, I'm not going to allocate an hour for a strength training session or a TRX session when you should be on the bike for an extra hour. It's dependent on, again, what time of year you're in, what race you have coming up, and where that time needs to be allocated. Because at mile 18 of the run, your body's not going to be like, dude, you know what? I wish I'd had those TRX sessions because my run has fallen apart. No, you're going to say, I wish I had the time to run more. Or I wish instead of doing 3 and 4 hours on the bike and take an extra hour to, do some body weight work or hit the gym or do CrossFit, I really wish I would have spent more time on the bike. There's things that are specific that translate and some that don't. Most of your strength training should be in my opinion, help keep and stave off injury, not to get a lot bigger and a lot stronger, because the bigger your muscles are, and another thing, the bigger your muscles are, the more energy and blood they take to work. It's like you need more gas to fuel a bigger engine the same way than you would a smaller one. So you have to think about that. So it's a complicated question. Do I think it's good for some people? Absolutely. I think strength training is great for a lot of athletes. Do I think it is essential as a have to have? No, I don't.
Wow. This is a big one for me, because I think a lot of people, I don't know, man, maybe I'm wrong, but when I hear strength training, I think of people putting on weightlifting gloves and, putting a back belt on and hitting the gym for 20 minutes and throwing down some deadlifts or something. But for me, it's like what you're saying about injury prevention. And I always think about strength training in terms of rounding out muscles that aren't used. I mean, we do running and cycling, and it's basically, unless you're mixing it up with big gear work and things like that. But I feel like you're just basically repeating the same motion over and over a million times. So sometimes that doesn't really get to different parts of the body. So how do you round that out? And I already mentioned push-ups, which I think is a huge one. For me, I think it's for core work and things like that. If you're talking about strength work, I always think core work first. And because that's the most important probably muscle in our training or muscle group. And we kind of neglect it, I think. And typically running and maybe cycling don't necessarily impact as much, but it needs the core so much. So do things like that. Plus, if you're going out on a run, just start off with some simple lunges that are under control, or end with them or something like that. To me, those are really good strength work exercises with body weight that matter. And I have a pull-up bar. I usually kind of get on there and either hang or try to do some of those. I never remember what these are called, but when you throw your knees up, if you're like on a dip bar and you kind of pull your knees up to your chest. Just work stuff like that. For me, those are strength exercises that are really related directly to what we're trying to do rather than trying to, but I hear there's like, correlation between your deadlift and that kind of stuff like that or whatever. But for most of us, I think it's more about just kind of rounding out the body and getting overall strength in your core and maybe just functional strength, I guess is a good way to put it.
I think one thing we need to get across is that strength training is you could consider that a million different things.
Yeah.
You consider that, Pilates or even yoga. You could consider it, going to
100%.
CrossFit. You consider it like there are so many definitions of strength training that. So when I say strength training, I'm talking like you're getting in the gym and doing barbell work. Like to me, that's what I consider strength training in terms of the discussion right now. Because there have been, and we've even talked about it on a podcast before, one of the earlier ones that like they used to think that high reps and low weight was the best way to be really really good at endurance events or help your durability or maximize explosiveness. But what they found was that things like squat, deadlift, power cleans, those were actually when you do low reps, a few number of sets or higher sets, but low reps, like maybe 3 sets of 4, but you're doing explosive movements with bigger weights, like that is what really will churn out results. I don't know about you, but I've seen a lot of triathletes, quote unquote, work out, and I don't trust 95% of them to do a proper a clean and jerk or a deadlift or a squat that's actually going to do them a whole lot of good. I just haven't. It's just like I'm just sorry, like I'm just not going to. If you have someone to watch you do it, then go for it. But again, it's about so much. It's not so much about is it important or is it a have to have. It's about understanding where you are in your own development and how your own ability and where you are in your athletic life cycle, how is your time going to be best allocated? I know some people say you have to strength train. Well, tell me why you have to, right? Should you and can you? Absolutely. But do you have the time to? Because if you're spending 2 hours a week strength training and you're fairly new in your athlete life cycle, or even you're increasing your volume, that's 8 hours a week. Most triathletes don't even train 8 hours a week. So you have to think about it again as time and how you're best using your time and how that's going to be. Could you split that up into 4 more hours of riding or 8 more hours of riding over the course of a month and be a better rider? Yeah, you could. Or 4 more hours of running or 8 hours of running. Like think of it. You have to think about it in terms of how you're supposed to allocate. And that's all coaches do. They allocate and show you or encourage you to lay out your stress load management in this fashion. Coaching is all about load management. So when you add in strength training and another trip and you have to have something that you own, like those are all things that add more stress and more time to an already time crunched athlete. Now, if an athlete has total expendable time and can do it whenever they want to, then yeah, you probably should add some in. You probably can, as long as, again, you have somebody there with you that can make sure you're doing it correctly. Like you see, you can't just pick a Shape magazine off the wall and go hop on and do 8 new sets of the clearest or the best new workout, and then you're going to be sore for like 10 days and you won't be able to complete I don't know, the swim, bike, and run sessions that you're supposed to because you're so epically sore. It's all about stress and load management. Is it a have to have? No. Is it you should? Yeah. Is it a lot of depends? Most certainly.
I say grab a couple soup cans and do some arm circles.
Oh yeah, chase the chicken. Here's all I'm going to say about it, because I can't wait to hear, this is going to be like a huge thread, I'm sure. If you're a person who can consistently meet all the demands that are put in front of you to do all the swimming and cycling without missing any, and you're perfect on time management, then add it in. If you can't and you fall short every week, then just prioritize better.
There it is.
Yep. Kimberly, as we know at swim camp, Swimberly, does the time of day you work out matter? Is morning best? Dude, this is such a relative question. For me, in the morning is always better. For you, not. I think it's a huge depends, but I also think it's a more of a the best time of day goes to how good is your time management and how stressful is your day at work. If you're a person who, as the day gets on, your work swallows you whole and you have bad boundaries, you're not going to find time, you have poor nutrition and hydration, then absolutely get it done in the morning because your day is going to basically own you the rest of the day. If it takes you a while to, if you sleep in, your day's not that demanding, you usually feel better after you get some good fueling in, then do it later in the day or experiment with it.
Yeah, man. I forced it there.
Yeah, you did. Just let it come, baby. This is a tough one. I don't know that I have an answer. Lauren Ashley. Best way to prepare for a 70.3 in 6 weeks with 4 hours of training time a week. Mostly kidding. That should be labeled 100% kidding. Best bang for your buck for improving swim speed. Swim coach or just more swimming sessions. Both. Take up duathlons instead. If you have 4 hours of only 4 hours of training time a week, I don't know, man. You should probably do at least one of those hours. You should probably strength train.
Let's see.
Sorry, I had to throw that in there.
Might be the best option, dude.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, sure. That's a Ben Grinfield topic. Yeah, I don't know about that one, Lauren. I'm not going to tell you that that's advisable because I think that's probably not the greatest idea. I'm not sure if you're kidding or not. I don't really know you. The best bang for your buck for improving swim speed is always to get someone to look at your stroke mechanics and fix it. It's not buying a wetsuit. It's not swim shorts. It's not whatever it is. It's to me just purchase a pull buoy and get somebody to look at your stroke and fix your stroke. That's the easiest, definitely best bang for your buck. Usually you can do it for like $100 or less. Tammy King, what's your take on Pilates? I don't have one.
I have one.
Go for it.
I've done Pilates one time.
No, I'll sit back.
So I'm not an expert, but no, I did because I did a yoga class, and then I was talking for after the class, and before I realized that I was in a Pilates class, the next one, and I said, "Wow, I feel pretty good today. I'll start doing this." So I was in the back of the room, and I was in there for like 10 minutes, and I was dying, and I ended up just kind of sneaking out the back right in the middle of it. So that's my take on it. But I think I was just blown away by how people could do that. It's a tough one, man.
It is a tough one, but
I think it's good. It's a course.
Yeah, I have no experience on Pilates, so I can't give any.
Yeah, that's my take.
Yeah, I think we can probably let's try to knock out just maybe 2 more. Carrie, how does each discipline, swim, bike, run, impact and improve the other disciplines? Example, cycling to running or swimming to cycling. Any benefits on focusing on one discipline over others? Also, any advice or pointers on active or inactive recovery? I don't know what inactive recovery is. When to move and to have couch time. Those are all very much it depends. I think swimming translates really well with running, and I think cycling also helps running. I think swimming sometimes helps cycling. I think they all help each other. Is there an exact percentage on how they each help each other? Not that I'm aware of. I think some athletes can get away with less running and more riding. But again, that is very, very dependent on the athlete, their experience, and their history. For example, if you had an athlete who's been, a collegiate runner and has a giant run base of durability and an aerobic system that's been built over 15 or 20 years, and they need to work on their bike, they can probably get away with running minimal mileage, A, because they have it in them, and B, because they're probably running it a lot faster, so they're going to be on the course a lot less, and it'll still translate, versus a person who has little to no running experience, that's going to be a little bit different. So it's very much, very, very, very much it depends. Have couch time whenever you want to. Tina, she said strength training, it's hard to fit in, but it's necessary. So we'll disagree on that. If I only have time to squeeze in a 1 or 2 hour session in a week, what muscle group should I target? Buys and tries, baby. Buys and tries. Got to look buff. Woohoo! I would always go for core and lower body. Dan, I am long training, day race nutrition, have always struggled with feeling depleted once I hit the 4 to 5 hour mark, having a real hard time with all the sugar from gels and Gatorade. Isn't a matter of training your gut. Yes, and figuring out the exact needs of your body. The exact needs, not other people's needs, not posting on Facebook and saying, hey, what do you guys use and do for training? Because everyone's going to be different because we're all different. You like broccoli, I hate broccoli. Everybody's different. Let's try to end on one last good one. We've covered a lot. Holy smokes, there's a lot more we didn't get to. Here we go. Because I think we've talked on a lot of these in general. Holly Kesterson, just because you're a friend of the cast, is it normal to feel like crap after a very long endurance race, or is it a sign that you didn't fuel right, pushed too hard, didn't train enough? I feel completely drained after each of my marathons, so I've also always wondered if that's normal. No, you should feel like trash. Marathons, in my experience, coaching and personally, have about the same physiological recovery time and effect in your body as a 70.3. So you should feel trashed. Now, will you feel more trashed if you didn't hydrate and fuel well during the race or right afterwards? Sure, you will. But and you also have to take consideration how much you've traveled. Did you travel to the race? How was your stuff after that? Like, how did you recover? And was it time well spent? But yeah, you should generally feel like trash. Good promotion for marathons on 70.3s. Jason Krupp, I covered that one. Hey, here we go. Nice one in on. Madeline Snow. Advice for beginners. I am learning that there is a lot more than I thought I don't know. I am sometimes intimidated and don't want to look dumb to more advanced triathletes. Great question. This is a wonderful group to ask questions in. Hey, you never know. Sometimes it might even be addressed in a podcast you can listen to in the future. Listen, one of the more difficult things about triathlon is that, and the world we live in now, is that everyone has an opinion, myself included. Everyone may or may not have an agenda, and then everyone thinks they know a lot and everything is different because there's a million different ways to approach everything, because a million different people approach it a different way. My first, I guess, piece of advice would be, just remember to have fun and surround yourself with awesome people, because those people will be ones that will truly give you the good advice. They will keep you humble. They will keep you having a good perspective. And no one, and I repeat, no one should be intimidated by a triathlete. And I'm being dead serious. Look at us. I mean, for real. Should you be intimidated by any triathlete? No, you shouldn't. Like, we're all straight up people. We wear funny outfits. We shove chamois cream in our crotch before race day. We get super nervous. We talk about stuff 24/7. We wear lycra and spandex like it's, our business attire or wedding dress. Like, we can't be taken seriously. We oftentimes take ourselves way too seriously. It might come off that, but if a person seems too intimidating to ask, then it probably means they're trying to cover up the fact that they don't really know what they're talking about. So ask away, always look for answers. And then it's one thing that's really, really important. And we a lot of times address this in the beginning of our podcast, but Mike and I don't know everything. We know a lot. And we only know a lot because we've done a lot and we've experienced a lot, both as people, both as athletes, both as coaches. But what we say and what we suggest, and as we share our experiences, that you should take everything we say with a grain of salt, and then add salt or remove salt, right? Because everything and every person and their life and their experiences and how they adapt and what they want to achieve, it's all different. It's all relative. Slow is relative. Fast is relative. Long is relative. Short is relative. Low volume. It's all relative to you. So you have to be willing to make this your own. And in order to do that, you have to have the confidence to ask away and then think, all right, I really, really liked what I heard. And then try it and think, all right, you know what? That worked well for me, but I think if I tweaked it, this might work better. So just find really dependable, welcoming, open, platforms that could be anything to ask questions, to gather information. And for the most part, like, if it seems like really simple, then it's probably true. If it seems like really, really complex and something that should happen overnight, it's probably bullshit. The things that make sense, that things are true, are the simplest. Be consistent, work hard, listen to your body. Don't risk getting injured. Stay happy, stay healthy, and you'll be successful. Like that. That's all it is. It's not rocket science. And so if you tend to find yourself going down that rocket science, avenue, steer back. It's simple. Just have fun, enjoy yourself, and understand that we all still are working at this. We're all still trying to get better. I was reminded of that on my absolutely piss poor, horrid run yesterday. When I got back, or I got to the Y, Hayden and I were swimming, and she was like, "What happened?" I was like, "Oh, so I must look pretty good." But I was running, and I just thought to myself, "This is why I love training and endurance sports and exercising and is because you just never know." And so no one knows all the answers. So have fun, enjoy yourself. Appreciate the good days, and just, if you're a beginner, welcome. You're part of hopefully a growing sport you can be a part of for a long time.
I think that's just great advice, dude. Nice job.
Hey.
Because, we always talk about triathlon as sort of a metaphor for life, and all I can say is the older I get, I feel like the less I know. And that's sort of a general statement, but it's one of those things where we can overindulge and try to figure everything out down to the core and whatever. But the reality is, if you're having fun, you're surrounded by good people, things sort of start to take care of themselves,
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what it comes down to for me, is like, you can research all day and all night, but just go do it, man. You got to learn through experience and being afraid. And I know this very well. I talked about how in my 30s I started picking up drumming, and I was so scared. I wanted to know everything about everything, but I loved it, but it wasn't fun because I was always so damn nervous and always trying to impress people or whatever. But the more I just started playing because I liked it and accepted that's what it was, I just started getting better, and I was more relaxed, and everything just kind of came together, and I became a shitty drummer that I still am. But it was a good time, and I think that triathlon is one of those sports where it can scare people and intimidate people, and I've been there, you've been there. Just the more times you kind of go over that threshold and just start learning stuff, but don't take it too seriously.
Don't take it too
seriously. There's no magical answer here in life or triathlon. So just, have a good time and be with good people.
Yeah, and if you ever find yourself getting your ego too big or feeling too sure of yourself, put on your tri outfit, put on your aero helmet, and stand in the mirror.
I was going to say send a selfie to one of those tri groups. I get so frustrated. Anyway.
That's it. That's a wrap. That was fun. I enjoyed that. We'll have to do that a little more often. Hey, we really appreciate those of you that chimed in and gave us some questions. I think we got to most of them. I know it was short notice, but we appreciate all the input. We hope we did our best. We obviously tried really hard to kind of go through them very quickly. But hey, we did what we could. We hope you got something out of it. And we appreciate you listening. If you haven't or want to just, swing on back by, head over to our new website, c26triathlon.com. It's our one-stop shop for all things training, coaching, and camps, and also highlights our wonderful community of athletes that we work with. If you want to reach out to Mike, he is at crushingiron@gmail.com. That is where you can throw in your man emails, encouraging him to get back to the Mike we know and love. And if you have any hate mail for me regarding strength training and Pilates, you can email me, c26coach@gmail.com.
Okay, buddy.
All right, man. Talk to you
later. I had a good time. Thanks a lot,
man. Yeah, man.
Yeah, man. All right, we'll talk to you soon.
See you.